I spoke with the Israeli Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni about her country's tensions with Iran, the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, and her own effort to succeed Ehud Olmert as Israel's next prime minister. Foreign Minister, thanks very much for joining us. Welcome back to Late Edition. Good to have you back in the United States.
Thank you.
Let's talk about Iran right now. I know Israel is deeply concerned about Iran's nuclear program. The Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, he said on Wednesday, he said the Iranian nation, by depending on its useful experience and advantages of 30 years of resistance, does not pay any attention to such talk and will continue with its path. They're showing absolutely no indication they're going to stop enriching uranium. So the question to Israel, at what point do you give up on sanctions and diplomacy and begin thinking about military action?
It is clear that Iran doesn't pay attention to talks. And this is a clear message to the international community to continue with real and effective sanctions. And clearly Iran is a threat not only to Israel, but this is a global threat, and the international community should act accordingly.
Well, at what point, though, assuming you continue with sanctions, how much time do you have? Yesterday, I spoke with your defense minister, Ehud Barak, and he thought that there was a window of 15 months to 36 months until the Iranians cross what he called a line of no return. Do you accept that window?
I think the time is of the essence even more. While we are talking, Iran continues, and any kind of hesitation coming from the international community is being perceived by the Iranians as weakness. And this kind of messages that talks don't matter, need to change the attitude of the international community. Intensive, enhanced, and sanctions that can be effective, and there are messages that need to be taken not only by Iran but also by its neighbors. Iran is a threat to its neighbors as well, and the international community is being watched not only by Iran but also by Iran's neighbors. And when the international community shows hesitation, this is being perceived as weakness, and we live in a neighborhood in which whether you beat the bully or join it. What? And I don't want the Iranian neighbors, which are part of the camps of moderates, to join Iran. So what we are doing today is of the essence, and we shouldn't wait to what we call point of no return.
So you're saying that you don't even give them 15 months necessarily. You think it's a more urgent matter?
Yes.
How much time do you think Israel, and for that matter, the United States has?
It's not, this is something, we need to understand that we need to act today in terms of sanctions. Sanctions can be effective as long as the Iranians and the entire world understand that all the options are on the table. This is what we need to do today. We cannot postpone it. We cannot wait for the Iranians to decide whether they are willing to talk with the international community. And the message coming from the Iranian is clear. Sanctions are needed today.
Recently, the chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Michael Mullen, on July 2nd, he said this. He said, "This is a very unstable part of the world, and I don't need it to be more unstable. Opening up a third front right now would be extremely stressful on us." He was referring to the first front in Iraq, second front in Afghanistan. To open a third front in Iran right now, he said, would be extremely stressful on the U.S. And I'm going to read another quote to you from the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Dr. Mohammed El-Baradei. He says, "In my opinion, a military strike will be the worst. It will turn the Middle East to a ball of fire." How worried are you that an Israeli military strike, for example, could turn the entire region into what Dr. El-Baradei calls a ball of fire?
The choice in the Middle East is a choice between bad options. This region is a region that creates some threats like the Iranian threats to the entire world. Now, let's talk about the situation when the world is not doing what needs to be done. We are not willing, and the world cannot afford a nuclear Iran. Infiltration and weapon of mass destruction everywhere in this region, in the hands not only of states but also of terrorist organizations. The world doesn't want to see what is now part of the camps of moderates become part of the camp of extremists. This is something that nobody can afford. So only by waiting, it doesn't create a better situation, but worse. And sanctions are effective only when the Iranians know that there are other options. But let's focus on the sanctions today.
There's a lot of political uncertainty in Israel right now with potentially elections coming up, a new prime minister. Do you realistically believe that President Bush's deadline for the end of this year for an Israeli-Palestinian agreement is still realistic at all?
In Annapolis, and I supported and still support deeply the Annapolis process, we decided and promised to make all the efforts to reach a peace treaty until the end of the year. We are making all the efforts to do so. But what is more important is now the understanding between Israelis and the Palestinians that we are on the right track. It needs to be understood that this Annapolis process launched these negotiations after 7 years of intifada, of violence in the region between Israelis, of violence of Palestinians against Israelis. And now we have these peace talks, which, according to my Palestinian colleagues, are the most serious and advanced peace talks in many years now. So we need to keep this track. We need to continue in negotiating, and it's not the timeline is less important. What is more important is the content and the fact that we continue to do so in order to reach a peace treaty.
Would you be willing to give up the Golan Heights to reach a peace treaty with Syria?
Syria now, this is now not even the beginning of direct peace talks between Israel and Syria, but this is indirect talks in order to find out whether this is possible. And it's important for the Syrians to understand that peace in the region doesn't mean only embassies or getting territory from Israel, but it means that they need to change their destructive role in the region.
If they were to do that, excuse me for interrupting, but if they were willing to do that, to reach out and to make full peace with Israel along the lines of Egypt and Jordan, would you be willing to give up the Golan Heights?
Wolf, my habit is not to negotiate with interviewer in Israel or elsewhere. The idea of peace means, of course, territorial concessions, but it is more important to understand that peace means that Syria should stop now the transfer of weapons from Syria to Lebanon to Hezbollah, the support of Syria of terrorist organizations, including headquarters of Hamas in Syria. Their connections with Iran doesn't help. So since this is a point in which we need to find out whether Syria is serious in terms of peace, the most important thing right now is put all of this on the table, not only by Israel, but the entire international community, and ask Syria whether they want peace negotiation just to get legitimacy from the international community, or are they serious enough, and in order to show that they are serious enough, they need to stop what they are doing right now in supporting all these terrorist activities in the region.
We're almost out of time, but a couple of quick political questions for you. Ehud Olmert, the Prime Minister, is giving up his position as leader of your party, the Kadima Party, in September. I assume you want to be the leader of Kadima and you want to be the next Prime Minister of Israel. Is that right?
Yes, I am.
Will you be able to do that without a new election, or do you think that there will have to be early elections in the next few months?
Kadima now is choosing its next leader. As you know, my intentions are to be the next leader of Kadima and then the next Israeli Prime Minister. I believe that there's a place for a government that represents unity in Israel. I believe that we have a common ground that most of the political parties in Israel can share in a government, in a coalition, and this can create a message of unity internally and externally as well. But this depends also not only on my desires or intentions, but also on the other parts of Israel political willingness to do so. But anyway, I believe in Kadima, and Kadima is going to win the next elections as well.
Even if Ehud Barak, the Labour Party leader, runs, because he told me he wants to be Israel's next prime minister, and as you know, the opposition leader, Benjamin Netanyahu, the leader of Likud, he wants to run, and he thinks he's going to be the next prime minister. It could be a lively political period in Israel.
May the best one win for the future of Israel.
We'll be watching closely the foreign minister of Israel, maybe the next prime minister of Israel, Tzipi Livni. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.